Ingraham from Washington tonight. Happy Columbus Day, everybody. Well, this is a day that commemorates the discoveries and daring spirit of Christopher Columbus. Now, it's a figure that is revered especially by Italian Americans. But of course, as they do with every American tradition, the left and Kamala Harris want to destroy this day and shame all of us for celebrating. Remember this gem?
It is an honor, of course, to be with you this week as we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, as we speak truth about our nation's history. Those explorers ushered in a wave of devastation for tribal nations, perpetrating violence, stealing land, and spreading disease. We must not shy away from this shameful past.
Well, of course, Trump, he's sticking with Chris.
His memory stands as an enduring testament to the daring spirit that built our great civilization. And as long as I have anything to say about this, and I hope that's going to be a long time, it will always be Columbus Day.
And that is a perfect encapsulation of where we are as a nation and the choice that's before us in 22 days. So which way is it, America? That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, over the weekend, Elon Musk's team of aerospace engineers and physicists managed to pull off two high-risk dramatic feats. First, SpaceX launched a massive Super Heavy Starship rocket, which in and of itself was incredible to watch. But what happened after was truly mind-blowing. Now, the first stage of the rocket landed back on the launch pad with the help of a gargantuan mechanical arm and a cool pincer-type move.
We have successfully caught the Super Heavy booster back at the launch tower. What an incredible view!
Literally, the tower caught the rocket, as Elon Musk tweeted. And then the other objective, perfectly achieved, was the spectacular belly flop splashdown right on target in the Indian Ocean Sunday morning after the successful test flight.
Starship is on target, approaching landing burn startup.
Landing burn startup.
Get a full view of the reflection of that landing burn.
You can see the water just behind the ship.
Starship has landed.
An incredible view. I think it is safe to say we have a ship in the water.
Touchdown!
I don't know if it was like this for you, but I could not get enough of this. It was absolutely awe-inspiring. And that was after Musk unveiled his robo-taxi prototype and his plans for a new Tesla robot last Thursday.
It can be a teacher, babysit your kids. It can walk your dog, mow your lawn, get the groceries, just be your friend, serve drinks. I think this will be the biggest product ever of any kind. Yeah.
Now, Elon Musk's success in innovation would not have been possible in a socialist country. But it's possible here, at least for now. But in states like California, this type of spectacular risk-taking and investment is becoming increasingly more difficult. Now, we all know that Elon Musk already announced his move of X and SpaceX from the Golden State, where both companies were founded. But the corporate exodus from California has been going on for years, as other states like Texas, Tennessee, Florida, South Dakota, the list goes on, have bent over backwards to create much friendlier business climates. At its best, our capitalist system encourages risk-taking and rewards smart innovation. It doesn't punish success with burdensome regulations or a crushing tax regime. Now, check out the top states for doing business in 2024 by one survey. So, what do 9 out of 10 of them have in common? Republican governors. But Harris and the Democrats, they have other priorities. beyond just growing an economy or innovation? Well, they have climate change, of course. That's their religion. And then they want to wokeify everything we do, everywhere we do it. And when you need to get rockets up in the air and cars on the road that are self-driving, the last thing you should be thinking about is racial or ethnic quotas in hiring. You should never be thinking about that anyway. Hiring the best and most talented people is Musk's hallmark. Now, as the most innovative force in America today, it is fitting that Musk is working hard to get Trump reelected. He knows that to be a country where greatness can still happen, where the American dream is still possible, we have to protect our sacred rights. We have to respect our Constitution, and yes, our traditions matter. We need to give our people a reason to celebrate the American spirit, as millions did over the weekend, watching these incredible advances in space travel. Now, of course, liberals are used to having all the billionaires on their side, so they've been on a tear against Musk since he spent, what, $44 billion to buy Twitter and restore free speech to the platform? And with his endorsement of Trump, now they treat the man who is really the Thomas Edison of our age just like they treat Trump, like a dictator in waiting.
You are electing Elon Musk if you are also electing Donald Trump. You're getting the richest guy in the world who controls a major social media platform. It's dangerous.
What a blowhard. Dangerous, Donnie. Well, none of these people seem to think it's dangerous when major forces on Wall Street and Silicon Valley own Kamala Harris. A few weeks ago, she hauled in a staggering $27 million at a soiree in Manhattan, attended by big money from hedge funders and investment bankers. Now, even the New York Times today had to concede that big business is pulling her strings. Now, here's the reality of the situation. Harris is controlled by the people who want to maintain the status quo. And look, she and they want things to stay the same, just as they are. Remember, they all think Obama did a great job. They think Joe Biden did a great job. They think Dick Cheney did a great job. That's why the old guard globalists are all supporting her. Now, we've been governed by this bipartisan oligarchy for most of the past 25 years or so. We've spent trillions on wars we did not win. We've lost tens of thousands of our American patriots along the way. We've lost millions of jobs to outsourcing. But if you think it worked out well for the working class, definitely Kamala's your gal. But most voters, and you look at the surveys, they're staggering, they think the economy stinks. Inflation has been crushing to American families, a 25 to 30% hit on most of them. It is nightmarish economically compared to where most of our citizens were pre-pandemic, when Donald Trump was in charge. And it's hugely stressful for parents and single people alike. But if you believe that we can do better, that our country can do better, that we can have higher wages for the middle class and a higher standard of living for Americans, then you're going to support Trump. And you'll ignore the incessant propaganda from now until November 5th. And it is heating up. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Now, remember when they said that Trump was going to start all those wars, when he'd crash the economy, 2015, 2016? Well, of course, he did the opposite. Back then, just as now, they're trying to scare you all away from embracing a more America-focused economic and foreign policy. But historians are going to judge this campaign, I think, 100 years from now, as an inflection point in American history. If Trump is reelected, this will be seen as a time when Americans took their country back again from the incompetent, bloated, corrupt forces that have run us into the ground for decades, and that they returned it and turned us to a period when we still believed we're a noble nation with an amazing history, not perfect, but still amazing, and that we can still do great things. Musk believes that with his whole heart. Trump and Vance obviously believe that, which is why they're running. But the question is, do enough voters believe it? Or have they gotten so beaten down, so beaten up, and so intimidated that they've given up? I don't think so. From the national pride and amazement about SpaceX and the enthusiasm and the patriotism and love that you're seeing at all these Trump rallies, including in California over the weekend, I'm betting that enough Americans still believe the best is yet to come. And that's the angle.
Democrats haven't felt this badly since Biden bombed the debate. The party is leaking like crazy. Anxiety, despair is the mood in Washington. The Harris campaign is stuck in the mud. And behind the scenes, Democrats are worried she stalled and her so-called lead has evaporated.
Vice President Kamala Harris had a 5-point lead in our last poll taken a month ago, right after the debate. That lead has all but evaporated, Willie. Take a look at this new head-to-head matchup. 48% to 48%. That is what we call a deadlocked race.
At this point in the election, Hillary was up 7. Biden was up 9. The betting markets have Trump's chance of winning is better than 50-50. And the battlegrounds are all tied up. So if the polls are as wrong as they usually are, we could know the winner on election night. Democrats are jittery. Trump's numbers are historic.
And the bottom line is this. At this particular hour, if you believe the polling, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance with black voters since Richard Nixon back in 1960. Not 68, since 1960. That's 64 years ago. Among Hispanic voters, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance for Republicans since 2004 and George W. Bush.
The media is preparing for the worst. They're wargaming a Trump sweep. Newsweek is even throwing around the L word. Landslide. 3 weeks until Election Day, and it's already started. The panicked phone calls.
Concern in Wilmington and greater concern amongst Democratic elected officials who I hear from daily, asking me what I know, because they know I know some stuff, and telling me explicitly and through their questions, they are worried, okay? Doesn't mean she won't win, but that's how we head into the weekend, okay? Democrats are worried about where things stand.
Democrat insiders are growing worried that the euphoria over Harris's entry into the race hasn't translated. They say she hasn't given voters enough reason to vote for her, and she's feeling the pressure. Barack sent her on a media blitz, and she said she was no different than Biden. And now the Harris campaign is changing strategies again. After snubbing the Fox debate, now Kamala is going to be sitting down with Bret Baier this Wednesday. All week, Kamala is going to be playing defense. She'll be campaigning only in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Her map is shrinking, but she claims she has faith.
It is easy in these moments of crisis to question our faith, to sometimes lose our faith for a moment, because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
I don't know what she just said. So after calling on the Messiah to scold wavering black men, Democrats are letting loose the comeback kid. But there's one problem. Nobody recognizes him. All white guys look alike, I know. And after Bill Clinton got shortchanged at McDonald's, he sabotaged her campaign at a rally. We'll have more on that later. But Democrats think someone else is sabotaging her campaign. Joe Biden. Insiders believe that Biden still holds resentment over how he was forced out, and he wants to remind people who's the boss. Now, just on Friday, he told Harris to hush up.
The fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, well, we're going to have to, I know I'm going to go to the vice president in a second. She's my boss here.
That's a true piece.
We're going to be, hang on a second, man, vice president.
Sure. 10 sources, 10, tell Axios that the relationship between Kamala's campaign and the White House has been increasingly fraught and awkward. Senior Biden aides are still wounded by the coup. NBC says Biden personally was stung when Harris used the "I'm not Joe Biden" line at the debate. Now, Harris insiders say they need to grow up. They're too much in their feelings. But they hate that Biden keeps bigfooting them. One person in the middle of it says the White House is lacking someone in the room thinking first and foremost about how things would affect the campaign. You know, Biden might want to let Kamala know that Israel's going to bomb Iran at any minute. Just a heads up, Madam Vice President, don't want this to be a surprise. And Harris's handlers are pressuring her to throw Joe under the bus and do whatever she needs to do to win. But Kamala can't do it because she's been a machine politician her whole life. And she's only gotten ahead by kissing up to the party boss. Even though she's kind of the party boss herself now, she knows she didn't earn it, so she can't act like a boss. And she's scared of blasting Biden, even if it helps her win, because no one F's with a Biden. Any Democrat who's gone against Joe didn't last long. Look at Gold Bar Bob. Look at Eric Adams. So the longer she stays loyal, the more likely it is she'll lose. And if she throws him under the bus, then Joe goes after her. To no win.
Name something that you keep in your glove compartment. Oh, VP Harris.
Steve, look, I was raised in a middle-class family, all right?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, my mother raised my sister and me, all right?
Yeah.
She worked hard and saved up.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And we had a second mother, too.
Okay. Did that mother have a glove compartment?
A small business owner named Miss Shelton.
Okay, we got that. Something that you keep in your glove compartment.
Oh, a Glock, Steve, a big old Glock.
So they know it's a sinking ship, and the media's been given the green light to ridicule her. And they keep going. Watch.
Campaign has raised $1 billion.
Oh, my Lord. How are you not winning by a landslide?
Yeah, that's a question I scream into my pillow every morning.
Kamala raised $1 billion in 3 months. And she's still the underdog. If Trump had that money, he could win California. But as everybody knows, money can't buy you love. The candidate is still Kamala Harris. Douglas McKinnon in The Hill says Democrats have come to the realization that Harris is simply not a very good candidate. She lacks confidence and is seemingly terrified to take any unrehearsed or unvetted policy questions. Harris is also a member of the Biden-Harris administration, an administration so bad that the party wouldn't let the president run for re-election because it'd be a guaranteed wipeout. And now the party's fighting with each other because they nominated a far-left San Francisco politician out of step with regular Americans. Binder is back to fighting with Kirby over who controls the briefing room. Harris is fighting with Joe. Barack's fighting with the blacks. Harris is even fighting with her own super PAC. When Democrats are fighting with each other, they're not fighting Trump, and they're definitely not fighting for you.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight we are only 22 days away from the election. The panic on the left is palpable. The poll numbers are not good for Kamala Harris. However, I urge every voter to assume that your sole vote will decide this election. In other words, take nothing for granted. But now, in a last-ditch effort to win over voters, the Harris campaign, this is getting very interesting. They're trying out two very desperate measures. One, the first, includes more public events for the Democratic candidate who's been in hiding for 84 days. And as you can imagine, it is not going well at all. Take a look.
You know, there's this whole, I talked with somebody once who said, you know, if you just look at where the stars are in the sky, don't look at them as just random things. If you just look at them as points, look at the constellation, what does it show you? So you just outlined it, Roland. What does it show you? That the cities that he picks on in terms of black population or black mayor are both.
Stars in the sky. Beautiful. Let's state the obvious. Kamala Harris is a terrible candidate. Her running mate, well, is just as bad, if not worse. She does not connect with voters, especially without a teleprompter. That is why Kamala has been in hiding. That is why her surrogates are so important to her campaign. Now, this brings us to the second desperate measure that the Harris campaign is now employing here, a full-court press featuring all of Kamala Harris's top allies. But so far, that strategy has been a disaster. First, campaign co-chair Gretchen Whitmer. She had to finally apologize for that bizarre video that many believe was a cheap attempt at mocking Holy Communion. Take a look. And then Whitmer spent the next several days claiming, no, this was merely a promotion for semiconductor chips, and now has finally been forced to apologize for offending Catholics and other Christians. And at the same time, another Harris surrogate, Barack Obama. It didn't look like he really wanted to be in Pennsylvania before the speech, only seemed to enjoy bashing Trump, which is the left's obsession. And there, he was scolding African-American men, even accusing them of sexism. Listen.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. And I'm speaking to men directly now. Part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. And you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that.
Oh, maybe you're against women. Wow, those condescending remarks were not received well at all. Far-left activist Nina Turner even accused Obama of, quote, blaming black men for the Democratic Party's failures. The very liberal New York Magazine calling it, quote, Barack Obama's tiresome condescension towards black men. An op-ed in the Washington Post referred to Obama as the scolder-in-chief and advised the Harris campaign to, quote, steer clear of Obama's instinct for, quote, tough love. So after a heavy dose of judgment from the former president, in this case Obama, well, the Harris campaign continues with more surrogates, but equally insulting tactics. Harris is now promising, you know, a handout and cold hard cash up to $20 grand in forgivable loan forgiveness, loans that are only available to black entrepreneurs, that they would be the only ones able or eligible to receive it. She, remember, also wants to pay off student loans, and she's vowing to help African Americans invest in cryptocurrency. And she's calling for marijuana to be legalized. But when you think of the pandering and you think it can't get any worse, well, think back. She wants to, is this kind of like a vote buying scheme when you want to pay off student loans for young people that you call stupid? Or is it $25,000 down payments for your first home, or $50,000 for other businesses? Or what about her running mate, Tim Walz, trying to win over male voters with sports and guns? Because on Friday, during a quick trip to a high school football game, where Walz was a assistant volunteer coach that kind of claimed he was the coach, he was almost ignored by the entire crowd. They gave him the silent treatment. And then on Saturday, Walz, he wanted to, show the world what a big Second Amendment guy he was, and he brought out a shotgun and he went pheasant hunting. And meanwhile, Kamala, she wants a mandatory gun buyback. Some might call it confiscation. Unfortunately, this was also a disaster for Walz. He didn't seem to know how to load his own gun. You decide.
That's my theory. And it never fits quite right. Never fits quite right. Just not quite right. How do you give it back?
Governor, what kind of gun is it?
This is a Beretta A400. I bought it when I was shooting a lot of trap, because it has a kind of their patented thing, a kickoff. So when you get old, it doesn't hurt your shoulder as much.
It's probably been 15 years since I pulled that sucker out. Anyway, of course, this trip wasn't all about guns and hunting. Walz also trying to connect with his fellow guy, pounding down a Diet Mountain Dew. I'd prefer regular. Take a look.
No, pin in. Pin. That's why it's hunting, not shooting, right? You knew it, didn't you, man? And I'm going to grab a Diet Mountain Dew if we got one. I'm going to pound one down.
Now, if you think that Walz is bad, just wait until you hear about the next campaign surrogate. Can't make this up either. In another desperate attempt to win over men, the Harris campaign turned to Bill Clinton. How you doing? Good to see you. Slick Willie, I'm back all by myself. Hillary's on vacation. Unfortunately, Slick Willie is not as slick as he used to be. And today, when trying to blame Trump for the border crisis, which was secure when they inherited it, and they bragged about for 3 years the border being closed, the border being secure, and bragging about undoing all the Trump border policies that brought us the lowest level of illegal immigration in decades. Bill Clinton, unfortunately, kind of indicted the border czar, Kamala Harris, for not vetting the 12+ million Harris-Biden illegals from over 180 countries. And Clinton says, oh, no, I was taken out of context. But as always, we report, you decide. Take a look at this. Listen to what he says about Lake
Trump
Riley.
killed the bill. The bill was being written by senior Republicans in the Senate. And he killed the bill. Why? You had a case in Georgia not very long ago, didn't you? They made an ad about a young woman who'd been killed by an immigrant. Yeah, well, if they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened. But if they're all properly vetted, and that doesn't happen, and America is not having enough babies to keep our populations up, so we need immigrants that have been vetted to do work, there wouldn't be a problem. And he couldn't keep people all torn up and upset.
The bill was not a border security bill. Wouldn't have even kicked in unless 4,000 or 5,000 illegals first crossed into the country illegally. And then they had the discretion of whether or not they would actually enforce the bill, codifying their open borders policies. He's not telling the truth. An unvetted Harris-Biden illegal immigrant is accused of murdering Laken Riley the same month that the Democrats' so-called border bill was voted down in the Senate. So nice try. That bill wouldn't do a thing to secure the border, which they lied about and were telling us for 3+ years was secure, and closed. Instead, Harris and Biden, they wanted to use this phony border security bill to hire judges and bureaucrats to process their unvetted illegal immigrants into the country faster. Now, this was after more than 12 million already had poured into our country. And while Harris, the border czar, looked on, did nothing, lied to the American people, said the border's secure. Thousands of convicted murderers, rapists, felons. Now we have known terrorists in our country. We don't know where they are, but we know they have terror ties, all because Joe and Kamala got rid of Trump's successful border protections, and they did it with a stroke of a pen on day one. They didn't need a bill in the first place. And that's why Trump just received a unanimous endorsement from the Border Patrol Union, and Kamala Harris didn't. These are the people who see what has been going on firsthand. And now, as we approach a very important election, responsible state governors like Glenn Youngkin, the Commonwealth of Virginia, they have taken measures to clean illegal immigrants, non-citizens that are not eligible to vote from the voter rolls. In doing so, Glenn Youngkin was enforcing a bill signed into law in 2006 by then Governor Democrat Tim Kaine, the guy that ran for vice president, requiring the state to maintain the Commonwealth of Virginia's voter rolls. But in a bizarre, crazy, insane twist, well, the Harris-Biden pro-illegal immigrant administration, that now suddenly seems to care about border security, they're suing the Commonwealth of Virginia, the state of Virginia, to keep those illegal immigrants on the voter rolls. And by the way, you need picture ID to get into the Democratic convention. I know, because I went there. I know it was a heavy lift. You need picture ID to get into a presidential or vice presidential debate or the White House. Why not voting? Why are Democrats against voter ID, signature verification, proof of citizenship?
No, I know. I'd adore Me Too if I were you. Happy Monday, everybody. So in a viral clip, a McDonald's worker actually mistook Bill Clinton for Joe Biden. At first, Bill was disappointed until he realized this means he might be able to bang Dr. Jill. Yeah, too old for him. According to 3 new polls, Kamala Harris's campaign is falling rapidly behind Donald Trump. Also falling rapidly, Joe Biden. But the Harris team is so depressed by these numbers that earlier today, Doug Emhoff could barely have sex with a nanny. Truly things look so bad, Kamala has already sent her resume to her old employer. Tim Walz went on a bird hunt this weekend, although he had a little trouble loading his shotgun. He defended himself, saying it's different than the one he used when he shot bin Laden. I do this. And today was Columbus Day, which here in New York is now known as Indigenous Peoples Day, or as Italians call it, oh, I got your indigenous holiday right here. That was my Italian. Yeah. Yeah. All right, I got to calm down now. The men of Chippendales have finally voted to unionize. They want a health care plan, a 401k, and the rest of their tuxedo. And finally, according to a new survey, many adults believe that sex is over way too fast. And for some adults, sex has never happened at all. What a heartwarming way to end our opening things. Our very own virgin, Joe Mackey. All right. So last week, fans of Kamala Harris dropped this ad, Men for Kamala, and you might want to pop a Midol before you take a look.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500 and braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast.
I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families. I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually. Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story. That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful. That's not how my mama raised me.
I hope there were tampons in the men's room at that audition. That was as manly as Dylan Mulvaney shaving Rachel Levine's legs. Now, the ad wasn't authorized by any candidate, but it could have been paid for by Trump, because it was about as authentic as Tim Walz's war record. All those so-called voters were paid actors, and not typical actors either, as far as I know. None are successfully waiting tables. Their film credits are rarer than fruit and Brian Stelter's lunch. But some of those men were so effeminate, they asked to be paid 80 cents on the dollar.
A sexist would say.
Not funny. The message was that even real men can vote for Kamala, which raises the question, if these men are out there, then why make this commercial? I mean, would they need Kamala supporters to assure them it's okay? It's like Kamala's your mom, and she's giving you a note to give to your teacher saying it's okay for Billy to go on a field trip. Let's just hope Coach Walz isn't on the bus. Do you recall any ads telling someone it was okay to vote for Trump, or to vote for anyone else for that matter? Recall any ads from the 80s saying that real men are allowed to vote for Reagan? He didn't need it. He locked down votes for real men, real women, even real chimps. It's sad that you got to prove these men are actually out there. Kamala's campaign is like Bud Light trying to win back the alpha males who used to drink it, only this time instead of beer, it's the Democrat Party. But the fact that you had to hire actors to pretend they're blue-collar types who vote for Harris means there aren't any real ones. Nope, Dems know that real men see through this bull. After all, look at her husband and her VP. They make Siegfried and Roy look like Ollie and Frasier. It's getting sad at this point. Listen to actress Jennifer Garner trying to assure male Kamala supporters that they're still men.
I mean, I'm looking at these beautiful faces, these women, and at these strong men. God, is there anything sexier than a man who is like men for Kamala?
Those men are just cheering because they want free Tampax. That video made more scrotums shrink than a urologist with cold hands. The only way Kamala voters are hot is if they're running a fever. And frankly, you'd have to be delirious to vote for her. And then there's Obama sensing trouble, admonishing black men for not voting for her, blaming it on sexism.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. I also want to say that that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. When you have a choice that is this clear, part of it makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly now, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president.
There you go. You're sexist. I'm surprised he didn't nag them for not knowing which was their shrimp fork. But Obama, shouldn't you be back on Martha's Vineyard, you know, where the black population is roughly 3%? If he wanted to twist some arms, he should have sent Michelle. But meanwhile, as Dems launched commercials for castratos, what was Elon Musk launching? New line of robots, a sleek self-driving bus, and then a rocket, which he caught on the way down. It's kind of amazing. I mean, think about it. Think about the physics. I mean, that's like lifting Joy Behar into the stratosphere and then landing her on an aircraft carrier, except lighter. But here's a guy who doesn't need to be told it's okay to do anything. In fact, they tell him the opposite, and yet look what he gets done. The man literally has a spaceship, and it works. The people come back alive. How many people in history could say that? So if you're looking at men, which side appeals to you more? A bunch of broke actors or a billionaire genius inventor? Now, when I watched that Harris ad, I wasn't embarrassed about being a man because I'm not them. And when I see Musk, I'm not proud of being a man because I didn't do what he did. He did it. And that's it. It's about individuals, not the group. It's the point that the Dems always miss, which is why they need actors to play what they think are men, because they don't know what men are unless they're a group that they can herd like sheep. And they embarrass themselves doing it, like Tim Waltz trying to hunt.
Yeah. That's my theory, and it never fits quite right. It never fits quite right. It's not quite right. How do you give it back?
Governor, what kind of gun is it?
This is a Beretta A400. I bought it when I was shooting a lot of trout because it has kind of their patented thing, a kickoff. So when you get old, it doesn't hurt your shoulder as much.
Oh, shut up! You know he doesn't know what he's doing when he's talking through it. But it's nothing like those weapons of war he claimed he carried into battle, which were actually gelato spoons while he was stationed in Italy. I mean, that was worse than Liz Warren trying to drink a beer, or as her people call it, firewater. But I never know. I never know. But they're always trying to be everything that they're not, which is regular people. And what's worse, they don't like regular people. So if you're a man, don't let an actor or a Martha's Vineyard elitist tell you how to vote. Hell, you don't even need me to tell you that. You can make up your own decisions. It's how we get honest elections and spaceships that work.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.